Hello, everybody, and welcome to Muddy River News this week, furnished by Harvey's. My guest is Faye Dant. Came to see us from Hannibal. She, of course, works with the Jim's Journey Museum over there, but we're talking about some stuff happening with the Historical Society this month. Thanks for coming.
Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation. I have an event at the Quincy History Museum on the Square. Mm-hmm. It's February 19th at 2 p.m. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things, including, or with a focus on Hannibal-Quincy connections.
One of those being the Underground Railroad?
One of those being the Underground Railroad. But the point I really want to make, and that I will be making, is that Quincy, I think, has a more storied history in terms of the African American contributions and achievements here, and I want to encourage people to learn more about that, if you will.
Okay, well, give me a couple of examples. Don't give away your whole presentation, but give me a couple of examples.
One of those I'm thinking about now, and I'm not a Quincy historian, so one of those is a woman named Lena Mason. She is her father was a man named Van Paul. Her mother was a woman named Serelda. Both enslaved people from Hannibal. Ran away, came to Quincy. He ended up deliberately came to Quincy. He wanted to be part of the war. He wanted to participate. He wanted to fight for his freedom. So he came with his pregnant wife over to Quincy and joined the Union soldiers. That, is at the 2nd Baptist. It was a recruiting station at that point. He joined the war, fought for his freedom. Lena Mason was born here. She, once the war was over, they returned to Hannibal. I mean, the roots were there. She has a wonderful story, and I've been able to lift her up at Jim's Journey. She became not only an evangelist for the AME Church, but she was also a poet. One of the earliest African American poets. And she has a couple things that have been published, and I've been able to share those with people. At any rate, it kind of hurts me to say that she was born in Quincy, but she was. Mm-hmm. And her roots were Hannibal, and they returned to Hannibal, where she, again, became a wife and mother and did what she needed to do. A lot of courage there from her father, particularly her father, who decided to fight for his freedom, if you will.
Well, there are so many incredible stories about that time with, anyone who wanted to try to gain their freedom, whether they were coming to the Dr. Eel's house, or again, we were one of the stops on the Underground Railroad, and at that time, and we talk about crossing the river. We're driving across a bridge. When these people were crossing the river, they were risking their lives.
Oh,
they were risking their lives anyway.
Yes, and a lot died.
Yeah.
Trying to get across that river. I mean, they had learned, through the grapevine, I guess, that across the river meant freedom. They died on the islands there, Jackson Island. Mm-hmm. They died in the river.
Sure.
It was, and the river, as you know, is represents, the good and the bad.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's but we've always, I think a lot of people in our area, we would rather the river unite us than divide us. Back, now, 200 years later, but back then it was when the Civil War was going on, and you had Missouri, which was The situation in Missouri and its status during the Civil War is one of the most fascinating aspects of history because they really tried to ride the fence,
Yes.
And Illinois was a free state. There's no doubt Illinois was a free state.
With a lot of slave catchers.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so it wasn't an easy journey.
Well, no.
Even when you got here.
Not at all.
Yes.
No, not at all.
Yes.
Because there were still, you had the people who, felt that they was their property. And which, of course, was horrible to think of now, but that's the way it was back then. It was their property. They wanted to go get their property, and just an abhorrent treatment that we see today as we look back and reflect, and hopefully we've learned better. And but I think your story and everything that you're going to talk about, Jim's journey, gives such great displays, and I think you doing this and bringing this over here, I think it's wonderful, and I hope a lot of people are able to participate. What's the time for the event?
Oh, good. It's 2 p.m., February 19th. But, I'm going to add that. I'm going to, since it's going to be televised sooner than that date, Hannibal, we have our own Black History Month celebration.
Yes.
Jim's Journey is sponsoring that along with the Juneteenth Coalition.
Great.
That's February 18th, 1 to 4. It's at our armory. And our theme is learning can be fun, and you're going to learn about various inventors and lots of the achievements of African Americans, and that'll be a good thing, and you'll have fun and win prizes doing it.
Well, that's great. And so I'm glad that we had you here a little early then,
Yes,
so you could
yes.
get a plug in for your event over in Hannibal. That's great. We want to let people know what's going on both sides of the river, and like you said, you're acquainted with Meg Duncan, who just started working for us and covering Northeast Missouri for us, and she's doing a great job.
Yes, good. Thank you again for having me.
Sure.
You and I have spent some time talking about slavery, but and the point I want to make, and a point I'm reaching out particularly to Quincy folks, particularly the African American community, to say that the history doesn't stop with Dr. L's.
No.
I mean, Jim Crow was alive and well here in Quincy, just like it was in Hannibal. When you think about Jim Crow, the first thing you think about is segregated schools and hotels. But it was way, way more than that. Sure. It was a public library. All those public spaces were segregated.
Right.
In fact, I read about a Mr. Kreider, who told a story about drinking water from a fountain at the Lincoln Douglas Hotel in the 40s, 50s. And it was a gatekeeper, one of the managers there, that said, you're not supposed to be doing that. Let's move along. And he couldn't do anything but move along because his job was at stake.
Sure.
So Quincy was very deep. I mean, while Quincy and Dr. L's and some of those folks were very serious about enslaving people, they didn't necessarily want all those African Americans in their schools or in the public facilities that they owned and operated.
Sure.
And we need to tell that.
Yeah,
history.
no, I think it's absolutely right that there are great parts of history, but there are things that shouldn't be sugar coated. And yes, to talk about the fact that we here in our community, in our area, have had our own history. Again, yeah, Jim Crow's not that long ago in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
And we hope that we have learned, and we hope that we continue to learn and progress and realize that everybody's equal. And I think that's the thing that we always want to strive for these days.
And uplift some people. And these
Yes.
are not necessarily famous people, famous names, but people that need to be uplifted. I believe totally in local history. If we don't know what we can accomplish,
Right.
then we don't necessarily strive for things like we should. You had asked me a couple minutes ago for a couple of examples. I saw this. I'd done some research on Quincy, and I came across a coach, I believe it was Forrester, who was a white coach at Quincy College, and he was very courageous in the way he uplifted 4 black players.
Right.
Including Ben Bumry, and I know him, and I know his wife Helen, and I know some folks like that. And another thing about Ben is that I saw that in 2003 he was the first black alderman. My God, Quincy was 178 years old when they did that.
Also the first black member of the Quincy Park Board. And when I actually served on that park board, and when I was on the park board, one of the things that I kind of helped push along was we took Riverview Park here in Quincy, and we named it Ben Bumry Riverview Park.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? And then you have the Hano
Yes.
Park.
Yes. So
I have roots with Hano. My auntie
Okay.
married a Bailey.
Okay.
And so there's a very prominent family, as I understand it, but something that again should be uplifted. And I know you have the newspaper, and I know you newspapers, and I know you publish things, and you have magazines. But I started Jim's journey. We're going to be 10 years old this year,
great.
2023. I did it because I had come back to Hannibal, and I saw that there was a need. I went to an exhibit. It was called Historical Hannibal. The only thing they had to represent the African American community was a picture of our Douglas school and a picture of our oldest church. And I approached the curator, and I said, we have a bigger story than that. And he said, then you go do it. So I decided to take that on.
Well,
I published an article. I got folks I told folks, and I was reaching out to the African American community,
Sure.
that I wanted to do this, and they needed to donate things. They needed to help us tell that story. And I have more than 600 items.
That's great.
On display at the museum, and some obviously in storage. But I'm thinking that Quincy people, they have stories.
Sure.
They have things in their basement. They have things in their attic. They have things in storage that need to be on display someplace. And so again, I'm encouraging the Quincy community to do your own Black History Museum.
I think that'd be great.
It'd be awesome.
Well, like I said, hopefully some folks will hear your words here on this as it airs, and we'll get something going. That's fantastic.
All right.
Well, Faye, thanks for coming over and seeing us. We appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you again in the future. Hope you have a lot of success. A lot of folks show up at your events coming up here in a week or so.
Good. Thank you. Everybody's welcome. Everything's free. So come do it.
That's great. Faye Dant, and we appreciate her being here, and that's all the time we have for Muddy River News this week. I'm Bob Goff. We'll see you next week.
Muddy River News. Our home, our news.